This is not a legend. It is a true story. The events you are about to see are written in the historical records of the Tang Dynasty, a catastrophe so vast it would be called the Holocaust of the Tang. It is the story of the An Lushan Rebellion, a real-world conflict that erupted from the heart of the world's most glorious empire. Before it was over, it would lead to the deaths of an estimated 30 million people, fundamentally breaking the golden age of China and altering the course of Asian history forever. This is the story of how the world's greatest empire was brought to its knees, not by an outside invader, but by the passions and poisons within its own court. The world had never seen a city like Chang'an in the mid-8th century. With 1 million inhabitants, it was the largest, wealthiest, and most cosmopolitan metropolis on Earth. It was the heart of the Tang Dynasty, the shining symbol of China's golden age. For over 40 years, the empire had been ruled by Emperor Xuanzong, a man who, in his youth, was a wise and capable ruler. He had reformed the government, patronized the arts, and presided over an era of unprecedented peace and prosperity. Poetry flourished, with masters like Li Bai and Du Fu gracing the court. The Silk Road brought goods and ideas from as far as Persia and Byzantium, filling the city's markets with exotic sights and sounds. The Tang army was the most powerful military force in Asia, its banners flying from the deserts of Central Asia to the jungles of Vietnam. It seemed as though this golden age, this perfect harmony of culture and power, would last forever. But the very stability that Xuanzong had cultivated would be the breeding ground for the empire's downfall. As the emperor aged, his focus drifted from the tedious duties of the state to the more intoxicating pleasures of the court, leaving a vacuum of power that ambitious men would fight and kill to fill. The focus of the aging emperor's world became one person, a woman of legendary beauty named Yang Guifei. Originally the wife of his son, the emperor became so enchanted by her that he arranged for her to join his own harem, eventually elevating her to the rank of precious consort, a position second only to the empress. Yang Guifei was not just beautiful. She was intelligent, charming, and a talented musician. The emperor was utterly besotted. He showered her with gifts, built her lavish palaces, and ignored the affairs of state to spend every waking moment. With her every whim became imperial command. Her rise to power was meteoric, but she did not rise alone. She used her unparalleled influence to secure powerful government positions for her entire family. Her brutish and incompetent cousin, Yang Guozhong, was made chancellor, effectively the prime minister of the entire empire. The court, once filled with the most capable men in China, now seethed with resentment as the Yang family's corruption and arrogance grew. The emperor, lost in his love, noticed none of it. He had found his personal paradise, blind to the fact that it was built on the foundations of a crumbling state. Into this decadent court came one of the most remarkable figures of the age, An Lushan. He was not Han Chinese, but of Turkic and Sogdian descent, a barbarian general who had risen through the ranks by proving his brilliance and loyalty on the northern frontier. He was a mountain of a man, so obese he claimed his belly was filled not with fat, but with pure loyalty to the emperor. He was also a master of court politics. He played the part of a lovable, oafish outsider to perfection, charming both the emperor and the consort. In a bizarre turn, the beautiful Yang Guifei officially adopted the middle-aged general as her son. This gave him unlimited access to the private quarters of the palace and to the emperor's ear. Xuanzong trusted him completely, granting him unprecedented military power. And Lushan was made the military governor of 3 northern provinces, giving him personal command of nearly 200,000 veteran soldiers, the most powerful army in the empire. The court's watchdog had been made into a wolf. While the emperor saw a loyal son, others saw a dangerous rival. The chancellor, Yang Guozhong, despised An Lushan, seeing him as a direct threat to his own power. The two men became locked in a bitter political feud. Yang Gozong repeatedly accused An Lushan of plotting treason, tried to poison the emperor's mind against him. An Lushan, from his northern command, watched as his allies in the capital were systematically removed from power, one by one. He grew paranoid, convinced that Yang Gozong was plotting to have him arrested and executed. He felt his position, despite the emperor's favor, was becoming untenable. He began to believe that his only path to survival was to strike first. In the year 755, claiming he had received a secret decree from the emperor to rid the court of the corrupt chancellor Yang Gozong, An Lushan mobilized his massive army. The rebellion had begun. The rebellion struck like a lightning bolt. An Lushan's army, a hardened professional force of 150,000 men, was the most powerful military machine in the world. They swept south with terrifying speed. The Tang Dynasty, softened by decades of peace, was completely unprepared. The internal garrisons were ceremonial, their soldiers inexperienced, and their commanders incompetent. The great eastern capital, Luoyang, fell with barely a fight. The rebels were brutal, sacking the cities they conquered and putting their inhabitants to the sword. Panic gripped the empire. The news that reached the main capital, Chang'an, was not of a distant border dispute, but of an unstoppable wave of destruction rolling directly towards them. The golden age was over. The age of chaos had returned. The last line of defense for the capital was the strategic Tong Pass, a narrow gateway through the mountains. A loyal Tang general held the pass, knowing that as long as he stayed behind his fortifications, An Lushan could not advance. But the paranoid and foolish chancellor, Yang Gozong, suspected the general of cowardice. He sent an order from the capital, forcing the army to leave their defenses and meet the rebels in open battle. It was a suicidal command. The Tang army was annihilated, and the road to Chang'an was wide open. When the news reached the emperor, he knew the city was lost. Under the cover of darkness, the Son of Heaven, along with his beloved consort, her family, and a handful of loyal guards, fled his own capital in shame. The imperial entourage fled south, a desperate, pathetic procession. They had barely escaped with their lives when they stopped at a small relay station called the Wei Post. There, the emperor's own escort, the imperial guard, reached their breaking point. They were hungry, terrified, and they knew who to blame. They mutinied. They seized and executed the hated Chancellor Yang Gozong. But that was not enough. They surrounded the emperor's quarters and refused to move. Their message was clear. The source of all this disaster was the emperor's obsession with Yang Gaifei. As long as she lived, they believed the empire was doomed. They demanded her death. The emperor pleaded, he wept, but his guards would not budge. His authority was gone. He was a prisoner of his own men. Trapped and powerless, the emperor gave the order. The most beloved and powerful woman in China was to be executed without trial. A court eunuch led Yang Gaifei to a small Buddhist shrine in the courtyard. There, she was given a silk scarf and sea, forced to hang herself. The emperor, who had abandoned his empire for this woman, had now abandoned her to save his own life. Her death satisfied the soldiers, and the pathetic procession continued its flight. The love story that had defined an era had ended in tragedy and disgrace at a muddy roadside inn. The emperor had lost not only his empire, but his soul. While the Tang court was in disarray, the rebellion began to devour itself. And Lushan, now emperor of his own great Yan dynasty, became increasingly paranoid and violent, executing his own lieutenants. His own son, fearing for his life, assassinated him. This act of patricide shattered the leadership of the rebellion. Meanwhile, the Tang forces had regrouped. The emperor's son had taken the throne, and under the command of the loyal and brilliant general Guozi, they began the long, bloody process of fighting back. Aided by foreign mercenaries, Guozi eventually recaptured Chang'an. The rebellion, weakened by internal strife, finally collapsed. But it was a hollow victory. The capital was a ruin, its treasures looted, its people scattered. The An Lushan Rebellion was officially over after 8 long years, but its scars would never heal. It was one of the most devastating events in human history, with the death toll estimated to be in the tens of millions, from battle, famine, and disease. The Tang Dynasty survived in name, but its golden age was gone forever. It lost its western territories. Its central authority was shattered, and it would spend the next 150 years in a state of slow, irreversible decline. Emperor Xuanzong was eventually allowed to return to a ruined capital, a lonely and broken old man, haunted by the memory of the woman he loved and the empire he lost. The story of his reign serves as a timeless warning in Chinese history, that even the most glorious of golden ages can be brought to ruin by the simple human follies of a leader's heart.